So today I'm staying at my mother's house, so down in Essex, and today I'm going to explore Brightlingsea, and I might go up to Walton-on-the-Naze. And these are both places that I've been to, or sorry, I've been living near for many years as a child, but Brightlingsea I don't think I've ever been to, and Walton-on-the-Naze I've been to a handful of times. But I don't know, I mean, that's usually the way, isn't it? You live close to stuff and you never ever see it. So I think there's some architecture in both places that suit my style of photography, so I'm going to go and check those out. Perhaps a bit of standing around, so warm clothes, and yeah, I mean, I'm quite excited to go and see somewhere new, or somewhere I haven't seen for many years. So that was odd. I turned up along the beach, along the promenade with the beach huts, and there was a little workshop going on. So I decided I wouldn't record any vlog there, partly because I'd find it very distracting, and partly because they would probably find it very distracting as well. But there was a very enthusiastic teacher, and it was quite good fun just mingling along and just hearing the advice that she was giving to her pupils. I think they're actually from a college rather than a commercial workshop, but even so, still good fun. So now I'm heading to somewhere that I have been before as a kid, Walton-on-the-Naze, and I think been there on probably a geography field trip. I've been there a few times as a kid, as a sort of pier there, a leisure pier, and arcades and slot machines, but not very often. And I've not been there to take any photos before, and I don't really know what to expect, apart from I think there's another tower there that's I don't know if it's a folly actually. I haven't done really any research on it at all, but it's literally down the road from where my mother lives, so I'm just going to go and have a look and maybe find out when I get there what it is, and if it's not too cold, and it is perishingly cold to be honest, I'm going to walk along the beach. And I know there's cliffs along the beach, sandstone and clay, because I remember studying them as a child in geography. So, you know, it's really just a bit of fresh air, and if there's something that catches my eye, then so be it. But, you know, I think it's just because it's really easy to essentially just look at your guidebook, and Justin Min's guidebook to East Anglia was pretty fantastic, but there's stuff that Justin hasn't covered, and you know, quite rightly, because there's a lot of coastline, and you know, there's only one Justin. So yeah, so it's part of, I guess, just doing some exploration on off my own back, somewhere that is very convenient for me to go and wander, and yeah, we'll again see what there is there, and obviously if there's something worth looking at, then I'll record it on this vlog. If there isn't, then I may just go home and have a cup of tea. So I'll catch you in a bit. Okay, so I've come to a place called the Naze, which is just a bit further on than the sort of seaside town Walton-on-the-Naze, and this is the place I must have come to as a kid, because this is where the cliffs are, made of sandstone and clay, and remember studying them. But what I didn't remember is this tower here. And apparently this was a observation tower, or navigation tower, sorry, built in the 1700s, which I think is pretty amazing. If we walk over to it, you can see that it's built of bricks, and certainly to my mind looks like, you know, it was more 19th century rather than 18th century. Looks too even 1700s. And so over here is, we walk towards the cliffs, and it's a very murky day, so we're not going to see very much. I think if you could see very much, you'd be able to see Felixstowe across the way. And I think when I first arrived here and started walking around, let's turn this around, I could actually make it out, but now it's just disappeared in the mist, and it's perishingly cold. I'm glad I've got my warmest coat on. But as we get towards the cliff, I'll flip it around again. So what's interesting to photograph? Well, down there, there's a groin and protecting the cliff here, and these rocks, obviously, again to protect the cliff from further falls. I guess they're trying to protect this area because of the tower behind me. Probably more interesting for me is these bunkers down here. So there's a couple of them. There's one here, and if I continue walking, there's another one a bit further on, and I think you can probably just about see that they're starting to shift in the sand and I guess be swallowed up by the sand. And as we come over here, you can see the cliff edge. It's really windy here, apologies, you can't hear a word I'm saying, but you see another one over there, and there's a few just along the beach as well. So I think what I'm going to do is grab my camera and get down there and see if I can get some nice compositions on those few elements. So, and the other thing I suppose it's worth noting is don't stand too close to the edge. That's the edge there, and you can see that stuff that's fallen must have only recently fallen. It's still got the grass growing on it. So do you get the idea that it's a bit chilly? So at the moment I'm looking at the tower, and it's hard to find a composition on it that didn't include a lot of the other stuff. So there's buildings all around us, and there's actually a car the other side of it. It's closed for the winter. It houses a gallery usually, and there's a guy in there doing some decorating, so there's a car around the other side. And I've set a shot up on a portrait orientation, and just using this path as a leading line, which is just kind of handy because it just happens to be here.
I'm fine, don't worry.
It's been my luck today to find people doing field trips. So earlier on it was a photographic workshop, and now it's a school field trip, but I got the picture anyway, so they haven't ruined anything. So as I was saying, it's portrait, probably be a black and white. I'll have a look at it and make a decision as to whether I want to use it or not. you know, it's an interesting shape. It's just hard to get an interesting composition on it today. So I'm going to head down to the beach now and have a look at those World War II pillboxes. So down on the beach, or nearly on the beach, and what is cool is that there's a lot of information about both the tower and the cliffs all along here, and even the pillboxes that we saw from the top. So they were originally on top of the cliff, and I'll show you in a minute how high they are, and they migrated their way down here and are reasonably intact. And there's actually a photo from, I think, the 50s of them on the beach, so they must have fallen, you know, not long after the war finished, and they look, you know, as if they were built on the beach. And it was only in more recent times that the sea has started breaking them up a bit. And there's actually there's a infographic here on the tower, and it shows that in the Second World War they actually had a rotating radar station on the top. And so let's just show you just the cliffs and how high they are compared to where we are. So I'm going to do two things now. I'm going to wander onto the beach, but I'm also going to keep a close eye over my shoulder at that tower and see whether actually there's a composition on it from the beach, which may be a lot more interesting, using the colours in the cliff as a little bit of foreground interest. So down here on the beach, I'm trying to get a composition, because I actually thought having the pillbox and the tower, so I guess two essentially military buildings from two different eras together, and the almost graduation of the colours. If I turn this around, you've got then the light colour of the tower, and as it gets down the cliffs, that yellowy orange gets darker, and the grey of the clay on the beach, and then the blackness of the pillbox. That's what's in my head. Whether that comes through in the image, I don't know. The other thing that's probably worth noting is I still remember my geology trip here, because I still remember this is London clay I'm standing on, and very slippery it is too. So I've taken just a couple of shots of that. I come over here. I've tried it in square format and in 3:2 format, and originally I was trying to get the bunker below the level of the bottom of the cliff by moving further back, but the lower I go back, the lower in height I get, because obviously I'm moving towards the sea, and therefore, you know, it's never going to actually happen. But so this is, I think, the best I can do in terms of composition from here. So I've taken a couple of shots. I'll just wander over to the bunker so you can get a better look at it. I don't know if you're interested in this kind of thing. I am. This was originally built as an anti-aircraft pillbox, and it had a machine gun in the top. Don't think you can really see that. It's in a kind of star shape, I guess, for protection. Ooh. So I tread in loads of water, and I think the sea's sort of starting to move it around now. There's actually, looks like a better preserved one over there, so I'm just going to wander over there, go and grab my camera, and see whether that is more representative of its original shape. Catch you in a minute. So now I'm closer, I can actually see that this one's in worse condition. I think the central bunker bit is probably in better condition, but the surround is moved and crumbling to bits. But still an amazing heritage that I guess maybe in 100 years' time won't be here at all. You can see the metal in the windows where I guess guns would have stuck out. Right, so to finish off, I thought what we'd do is just look at some of the images that I took, and I really don't think that any of these are keepers, but let's look at them anyway. This was at Brightlingsea, and this is Bateman's Tower. So this is the first obvious thing to go and photograph there, and it's debated whether it was built originally as a lighthouse, but it was never used as a lighthouse. It was built in the 1880s. So the first image is looking across essentially a car park with a beach on the left, with a tower in the middle, good leading lines, but wasn't particularly happy with it as an image, so I didn't spend a lot of time on it. There's a couple of better ones. So this is a zoomed in view of it. So what are we doing here? So it's 70mm, and one of the things about the tower is it's not perpendicular, so you've got a choice of lining up the horizon or the tower, and I guess you're always going to choose the horizon. So I quite like this with the tower reflected in the water in the foreground, and there's a black and white shot of it as well. Don't know which one I prefer, but yeah, and this one's obviously square cropped as well. Other things you can shoot at Brightlingsea, so there's lots of mud that reflects the light well. You know, not particularly happy with these shots, but they're there to be had on the right conditions. And there's lots of beach huts there, so moody beach huts. Shots are possible as well. So moving along to the Naze, so Walton-on-the-Naze and the Naze area of it. So another tower, and you saw that in the video. This was probably the most simple view of it I could get. The car was behind the tower here, and we couldn't see any of the buildings, and probably black and white works best on a day like it was, because there was absolutely nothing going on in the sky apart from greyness. Again, you know, not hugely sort of happy with it, but just to sort of show you, this was from the beach. And again, it's debatable. It's debatable whether, you know, I'd even show you this picture, but I think it's sort of important to show the successes and the failures, and you know, this is definitely a failure. You know, yes, we've got essentially what I wanted is this line going sort of up here to the tower, but you know, it's far too messy for me. And then one final thing was this was a very strange artifact that was in the sea. I assume it had something to do with the Second World War defence positions there. No, don't know though. Covered in seaweed, and it's probably the image I'm most pleased with of the day. So those were the images. As I said, I've showed you the failures and the successes. There weren't many successes on the day, but you can sort of get a view as to what is on offer for the photographer there. I'll put some notes in the information attached to this video about exactly where those locations were. And what I would say, and I'll leave you with the pictures at the end, is I've got a workshop coming up in February, so long exposure in Suffolk, and to my mind, time I've spent in Suffolk has been amazing for the types of photography I do, and you'll see the images at the end, but all those images were taken from workshops in the Suffolk area. The next one's in February, and my link's on the website. So yeah, please subscribe, and I really do hope to see you next time. So bye.